Turners know we're always trying to solve some kind of a problem, and that's always best solved with some specialty tool or jig or fixture or something. And so we thought today it would be interesting to have people bring stuff they find novel and interesting, something that works and you can go about how effective it is, or something that you maybe bought and it's gathering dust in the corner because it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. So any of that gamut. So we don't have a list of who's doing that, but let's kind of do like we did with show and tell, get people to come up individually and show us what they've got. Let's see, why don't we kick off with our Earl and the show and tell here.
Okay, this is the start of making a hexagonal piece of wood, and it has to be accurate because I'm making Celtic knots. Instead of just the normal 4 rings, I'm doing 6. My next stage is to do 8. I haven't gotten to that point yet because I'm still making sure this thing's correct. I'm going to pass this around. And what I want to show you is, this is the device that fits on my table saw. And this fits in here like this. And I can't twist clamp to hold it in place. And it butts up against the stop, so it always in the same place. And being on the table saw is really nice because everything's repeatable. Yeah, there we go. And when it goes through, you also need a stop because you don't want to go too far because there's parts in here. Somewhere in here you got some stops. So that's what these are. These fit in the channel, and you loosen this up so you've got some wiggle room in there. And then when you tighten these, it expands so that nothing moves. So there's one for each of the slots. And the screw goes out that way. So when the thing goes up, it stops just at that right place right there. I'm going to pass this around. And one of the things I did with these, because of the other blade that I have, I made some rings so that it drops in, it's always at the right height. And if I want a slightly different height, I can take the ring off and move it up and down. As I said, these are pieces of a bearing, a big Blanchard grinder. I work for a company that grew sapphire crystals, and because it comes out of the crucible, fairly rough surface, we have to grind them flat. And where you may have seen these but didn't know it, was supermarket scanner windows, because it doesn't scratch. It's extremely hard. The other place is for semiconductor processing. Again, very hard, passes a wide range of frequencies. The other thing I do is I make a lot of seam rippers, pins, things like that, and I put the Celtic knots in those. This is a clamp system for gluing these up. Things like this, which allows me to put this on one of the table saw that I made and get a very accurate 60 degrees in this case, but I can change that with a set of holes so I get other degrees of cutting. So I make a lot of things like this. I do a lot of wine stoppers because everybody who drinks wine knows immediately what they are. Those people that don't know, I say, these are also good for salad dressing bodies. So, multi-purpose. So this is my blocks I wind up with, tap for a 5/3/8/16 hole, which the stopper goes into. These hexagonals have to be accurate. They have to be really accurate. I tried doing them on the milling machine. I tried, different methods. And finally I wound up with the table saw. And when I measure these gaps here, they're within 3 or 4 thousandths. Well, that's good.
Are you using a standard table saw or the one that you made?
I'm sorry?
Are you using a standard table saw or one that you made?
No, well, I can use either ones,
Yeah.
plural, but the unisaw really is the best one. Just a couple more little gadgets. Let's see, what is this and why is this? When you're doing the glue ups on, like the seam rippers, you put it in here at the right angle, and that allows the glue not to run down the side or whatever you're gluing up. You put a piece in there, you put the glue on, the glue is on a flat piece level, and then you take the other one, you put it in there, and then you put it in, you know, the holes that I passed around. Here's one that I made for doing either hex or either 6 or 4 pieces. When you make these, put in the lathe and make a line and make a line and make a line, make a line. And that way you're always going to be cutting exactly the right spot, because it doesn't really matter what the blade thickness is. You can use thin blades, you can use thick blades, but as long as you're starting out at the same place up here, then you're going to be fine. Now this one, for example, which is on my other table saw, it's got a micrometer adjustment in here. So I can make tiny adjustments to make sure that I'm starting in exactly the right place. Ron's right, it's fussy, but that's the kind of work I've done all my life. You know, I didn't start out as well, actually I did start as a craftsman, because growing up in down East Maine, we were, I won't say dirt poor, but we were one step above that. So we had to make toys. If I wanted a toy, if I saw it in a magazine or something like that, if I wanted it, I had to make it. So I made all kinds of crazy little water wheels and rubber band powered boats, you know, paddle wheels and things like that. And I never stopped doing that. I'm 85 now. I don't feel like it. Maybe I don't look like it, but I am having a ball. I'm having so much fun with all this stuff. And you know, you see stuff like this, and I had to think about it for a while. I did it wrong 3 or 4 times before I got to this. And I happen to have, because I'm not a hoarder, you understand. But I do have an adequate supply of things. Oh, one more thing. This is wax paper, but this is the unbleached type. You know, for doing it via glue up, you need to have a paper, wax paper usually between whatever it is you're doing in your jig. This is unbleached. It is shiny on one side, but nothing sticks to this. I mean, it is really far superior, and I think it's probably a little bit cheaper, although wax paper. Grocery store.
Is that right, they carry it?
I sent my wife down because I was out of my regular roll of wax paper, and she brought this bag and she said, well, they didn't have the other stuff. Is this okay? Okay. And it's great. Great. So it comes in a box like this. Hey, I got one more thing. Okay, one more thing.
Not trying to rush you, man.
Okay, what the hell is this? This fits in my little belt sander and allows you to rotate this. This is for pins where you need very accurate lengths on whatever it is you're doing. So that fits in there, and you go back and forth, and the disc is like this, and you just run it back and forth. So not only is it the right accurate length, because I'm measuring it, but it's also flat, so you don't get any bulge, you don't get any pockets. I have a ball. I've had so much fun.
Thank you, bro.
This is just the surface.
Right.
Alright, so not so much a tool, but I just recently bought these books I heard on a podcast. It's the 500 series. They have a ton of different books. But I thought this one these three fit for turning. So there's one on vases, bowls, and wooden bowls. Just some inspiration so you can kind of see shapes. You know, we talked about it at the critique. So it's literally just a picture book. But I think it's good to kind of see other shapes and get some ideas. So I'll pass these around if anybody wants to look at those. So this is a tenon jig for my 2 job sizes. So I just 3D printed this. Not everybody has a 3D printer, I know, but I think anybody can make this out of wood. You just kind of cut the dimensions, but it's a quick, simple, check my tenon size, so do I got it right, flip it over, versus measuring. And then this is my circle cutting jig for my bandsaw. So just slide it up on the bandsaw. I got my guide in the back, and then this little slide for my different sizes. And I did a little mark just so I know how big it is. But you just drill a hole in the bottom of the blank. It'll slide on this nub. And you can set it up, clamp it, stays, just easy, quick. So I'm not gonna pass this around.
Like, you know, I can put that in my truck. You need help?
No, yeah. So it's just HDP on top and I think 1/2-inch piece of plywood on the back to hold it all together. And then this is just a miter rail.
Do you clamp it to the bandsaw?
Yeah, so when I slide it on, I'll slide it on the bandsaw and I have a reference point so I know where it'll be circled, because sometimes I'll have to slide it in to make the cut and then I'll just clamp it to the bandsaw. If it's a smaller piece, it's fine, but if you get like a 12-13-inch heavy blank, it'll tip it over.
Yep.
Hey, Josh, I got a question. You know, so sometimes when I'm cutting a bowl blank on my saw, it might, because of the wood and there's some, like a knot, it might bind on the blade. Do you have binding on this, or did you?
Yeah, so I think that as long as you got it kind of centered, and that's why I have the mark on one side, so I know, because I had it where I wasn't marking it, I thought it was centered upright, and I'd have a little bit of an oval, which was fine, it chewed up on the lathe, but yeah, no, it doesn't tend to bind at all.
Because you get it where it's exactly tangent to the
Yeah.
blade, and then it just cuts like butter.
Yeah.
If you're a little bit off, you get an oval.
Yeah, and that, I mean, obviously you can put it all with a template to kind of, or just eyeball it, which is fine, because you don't have to have a perfect circle to throw on the lathe, but I just found this was kind of easier to set it up, spin it, and it kind of goes. It's just a little easier. You're not as focused on trying to maintain it center. You can just make sure you're just rotating it slowly and it goes through pretty quickly.
That's cool.
So,
Thank you.
any other questions? Perfect.
Josh?
Books and boards. The big one is both the first plywood and the hardware is 80/20. The other fellow mentioned to do the Live Love 80/20. It's great. They have their own website and they sell on eBay too. Great source for special, aluminum hardware like this. And this one is same idea, but this one is for this guy. He's in Georgia. He sells on Etsy. I use this in my little MIDI, a jet MIDI, similar to that one there, and that works out pretty well. And this is the Carter Polo Roller hollowing system. Nice little system. It's well made. It's compact. It's easy to set up. We have straight tools and the curved tool here, and this is the support for up near the piece. The only thing I don't like about it is the bars are different sizes, and every time you change bars, you have to readjust the rollers. That's a bit of a pain. But other than that, it works. Other than that, it works well. That's pretty much it.
Gary, what do you use the roller for? I'm sorry.
The roller, the piece, I don't have to adjust it, but it slides in there.
Okay.
And there's a flat on the bar, and that's how it controls the torque. And you think it's pretty small, but it does work. It does control the torque.
It's mainly a hollowing.
It's a hollowing rig.
Thank you.
Gary, in your large center study, what is the wheels? What do you use for
They're inline skate wheels.
inline skates?
You buy a set of them for 8 for like, these are the cheap ones, like $30. That's it.
Do you like the 3 or the 4?
I use the 3. 3 works fine. And there's, I think there's a couple of commercial ones. OK Spin Doctor makes one really heavy. This guy sells on Etsy. And, oh yeah, Carter. These people, they make one as well. And that's it. Thanks.
So I like doing hollow forms, and I was challenged to get a smooth get it smooth inside the hollow form, especially when you get right around the corner. So Don Lowe, I was talking about this, and he had suggested using hemostat. So I found online a hemostat that evidently they use this for I guess tattoo and piercing specialists use something like this. I guess to catch your skin, and they put a piercing there. But I found these online. They're pretty reasonable, and it does a great job of holding some sandpaper when you're trying to go inside the inside a hollow form. Or I guess if you're trying to do surgery on something. But then, interestingly, I mentioned it to my next door neighbor who happens to be a surgeon, and she says, "Oh, I got that." So she started bringing me home. There's a heavy duty one, and then this one's got a nice curve on it. In fact, Don, I think this is sort of similar to the one you have for going inside. I said, as long as they haven't been used on people, I'll take them.
That was get the bowl out. It's all out.
So anyway, I just want to mention that Don, it was good advice that Don had given me, and I find these very useful for just like I said, holding sandpaper or a little. It's just sandpaper to get inside the edge of something. So just something I'll be using.
You don't ever want to hold those handles while you're...
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah, well, I don't put my hands in here. I clamp it, and then I hold it like that so that if it does get caught while it's spinning, it'll fly and won't take my finger off. In which case, I'd be needed to call my next door neighbor and say, I need some help.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Next.
So we always started with the zenith of complexity, and with me getting the nadir. This is about as simple as it gets, but I just thought for some people that are getting going, show a couple of things. So this is just a shear scraper that started out as a chisel that ended up on the road, and I found it when I was walking my dog. So this was $0. And just keep in mind the things that you can do that are simple. This I kind of like. We're all woodworkers, and we buy all these metal tools. And so I wanted a bowl gauge, thickness gauge. And I just went online and took a picture of what they sell. I don't know, I think these sell for about $30. And I printed a picture and put it in my copier and made it a little bit larger, and then found a piece of mahogany that was laying around, and just made a bowl gauge out of that.
In 80 hours worth of work.
No, not at all. This went pretty quickly, actually. And
You traced it from your picture?
yeah, I just traced it from my picture. I was going to make it out of plastic, and I had a piece of clear plastic, and I traced it on that, and then I didn't like it, so I took the template that I then had out of the plastic and traced it onto a piece of wood. But anyway, it's very simple.
Hey Dave, what's nice about that is that it is wood or maybe a plastic. I have a metal one, and the problem with that is that it scratches or can dig in too easily, so that's really nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. I'm going to make another one. I haven't got to
State
it.
bent wood?
What's that?
Is that state bent wood or not?
No, this is just cut. It's just cut on my scroll saw.
No double laminate, no, the stripes is a question?
Yeah, I mean, it's general. I mean, you're not doing it when it's spinning or anything, so it's pass it around. I mean, it's nothing fancy, but so far I haven't broken it. If it comes back broken, I'll have to think about doing it laminated. Yeah. So again, these are really simple things, but for people that are getting going, Jim Forbes is always talking about this, but for depth gauge, this is just a piece of brass bar that you get at Home Depot, piece of hardwood that's hard enough that you can thread, and I just put a little screw in here so you can adjust this in and out to check your depth on your bowls. I thought these were kind of cool. This is everything I have here is pretty much somebody else's idea, but I just figured I'd show it for people that haven't done it.
I appreciate it.
So good. So I actually was at CFC, took that same lidded bowl, lidded box class that Rudy Lopez did, and I liked he had done these things where he made a bunch of sanding basically blocks that are you put them on the lathe, so I won't bother to knock this out. It's a Morse 2 taper size, and you just stuff this in, and on the end, this is some dense foam, and then I glued a piece of contact cemented a piece of Velcro, and then you can use sanding discs and cut them to smaller sizes and use whatever grit you want. And it's nice because you can make them short and wide, or you can make them long and skinny so they go deep down into the bottom of a tall, hollowed out vessel. And to make the Morse taper right, I just took a piece of couple scraps of wood, took a piece like something that already had a Morse taper on it, and I glued it up to the side of it so it fits it exactly. Although I think this one I redid. Yeah, there we go. Whoops. Just more glue. But that's the beauty of CA glue, and the bad part of CA glue, it breaks pretty easily. But anyways, if you have a little device like this, as you're turning them, you can just keep checking it, and you don't have to change the calipers from the bottom to the top, and when it kind of slides down on and fits, you're done.
Cool.
That's a beautiful knockout bar.
So these just fit in like so. So that would be a deeper one, and a not so deep one, etc.
It worked really good for doing the bottoms.
Yeah. Another thing, when we did the turning session over at CFC, you read about doing jam chucking, and the stuff that I had always seen done was Richard Raffin, and he makes them so they absolutely fit perfect, and it's basically a friction fit, and then you kind of turn the bottom of whatever you're finishing, but they got to be perfect or they don't stick on. But what Rudy did a lot of was he would do jam chucks, and you just pull the tailstock up and pin it there and get it down to a tiny little nib, and then you just sand that off or trim it off. But you don't have to have it absolutely perfectly fit for the bowl that you're doing, whatever you're doing. So this is not the right size thread. Thank you. But I had gotten a bunch of hardwood, and I drilled it out, and then I had a tap so that I could get this 1 inch 8 thread, 8 per, I can't even talk today, 8 TPI anyways. And so this just screws onto my drill now, my lathe now, onto the thread, and then I can jam chuck up against that by pulling this up here. But it's nice, I don't have to have any kind of a chuck to hold another piece to put it on. I just screw these on, and I got a couple different shapes. This is just for flat. This would be for the inside of a bowl or something. But it's pretty easy to do, and you can do them over and over and over, and they're fast. I just throw it on, and it works.
Dave, what are you using for foam?
It's the same that what you get at the craft stores, that high density, real thin foam, and then I contact cement the stuff. Contact cement seems to work better than everything else. I've tried rubber cement and CA and Gorilla Glue, and the stuff just comes off. But contact cement really seems to hold it pretty well. They make these things, it's called like rubber chucky or something like that, but they're like $50. And I'm
For 10% of the price of a rubber chucky, you can go to Walmart and get a kneeling pad and cut that out. Cut the kneeling pads out and spin them on the lathe for the shape you want.
Yeah.
And they laminate very easily, and those kneeling pads are a variety of different densities depending on the brand.
You also use flip-flops.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So anyways, I tend to be kind of frugal and not want to spend a lot of money on these things. So, and then the only other thing this is super simple, but when you're doing your sharpening, you've got to have, your different angles on your table to do roughing gouge and things. So I have these set up so they sit on the table, and when these two are up on the stone, you can get the exact angle. So I think probably most people know that sort of thing anyways. But I made all the different ones, and then I have a magnetic strip that I just put up on the wall, and I just glued washers to them, so I have boom, 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 boom. I have like half a dozen of them. These are just super simple little ideas that are time savers and space savers. I have a really small shop, so I don't have a lot of room for stuff with drawers and things. I have absolutely no wall space anymore because it's all covered with stuff. But anyway, so just some simple ideas.
Very good.
Sure.
Well, I have a few things here. So most of the tools are there to demonstrate the tool caddy. But anyways, the base of this came from some patio chairs that we bought. We registered the product, and they had a recall on the bases, so they shipped me 4 new bases. So I had these 4 chair bases sitting around, and I always thought one day I'm going to do something with those. And so the other day was the day. And so got a 3/4 inch black iron coupling, pipe coupling, and then just built this up from there. So there's 2 Lazy Susans, and one in each tier. And the holes in the top are a little bit smaller than the holes in the bottom. My thinking was this is more spindle tools, this is more bowl tools. And as many of you know, I have a very small shop. I've got tools scattered all over the place, so I can have this near the lathe, have most of my tools on it, probably not all of them. This one is an example of one that doesn't fit in this, but I made this simple little block that goes in one of the holes with a V, and so you can just kind of set that one in there if you like. And that's it. A couple 12-inch diameter Lazy Susan mechanisms in there, and I haven't implemented it yet in the shop. Hopefully it works out as well as I think it will.
It's a thing of beauty.
Did you cut the plywood with, what's his name's,
Circle cutting jig.
circle cutting jig?
No, I just knocked the corners off it on the bandsaw, and I put it on my lathe. It's nice to have a 25-inch lathe when you've got a 24-inch disc you want to turn.
Aren't you afraid you're gonna run out of space for gouges on there?
So there's 27 spots on the bottom tier. There's another 18 on the top tier. And
He has 4 bottoms.
so if I run out of space, then, well, I do have a problem, so.
Are they glued in, or the PVC or whatever?
The PVC is, yeah, it's just glued in. I have a metal lathe as well, so I only had standard size Forstner bits, so I got the closest one, and I put these on the metal lathe, and I just cut the diameter and popped them in the box again.
You're not moving enough for another whole second load set of holes inside that set of holes to start with.
Well, I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with this kind of unused space in the top. Maybe we'll put a tissue box there or something, I don't know. Yeah, I think it needs it. And I did bring, and these other tools are just standard tools. I just put them there to show the tool caddy, but these tools are a couple of things. Actually, I'll start with this one. This is more or less a box tool, but what's different about this than most of the box tools is this end just has a slight radius. And so you can skate this across the bottom of the box, make a flat surface, and it'll still cut nice, and it'll leave a nice surface finish without a lot of ripping and tearing in the wood.
Did you make that, or is that a commercial?
No, it started out as a commercial something or other, and then I just reground it. And this is another commercial something or other that I reground. This is, and I know it's a little hard to see, but this, when you sharpen this, you just kind of lay this on your wheel and sharpen that surface. But ultimately, it's a negative rate grooving tool, and this thing doesn't grab. It's very safe to use, And I often use it for doing face screws and some of the tops that I make, or getting under the branches of Christmas trees.
When you're making your grooves, is it curved side up?
Yes. Yeah, and it's very simple to sharpen, but it works really well. It's
Sharpen the bottom.
I'm only sharpening that surface.
The curved surface.
The curved surface?
Yeah, you lay that against I lay that against an 8-inch CBN wheel and just grind that a little bit.
Okay, so you're taking a hollow ground off of that,
Yeah.
off of the wheel.
Are you
The back
using-
is just straight.
Using a burr?
What's that?
You get a burr on it?
No, because the wheel's coming this way. So I don't get a burr, but it's a fun tool to use because I've never had it catch. And lastly, this tool, this is a knockoff from the robust TrueAct system.
Okay.
But it's handy for sometimes doing the bottom of a bowl if you want to make a nice radius. And so the way this works, and again, this is
It's this way, oh.
TrueAct knockoff. So you put your drill chuck in the tailstock, and you grab this with a drill chuck, and then this will just swivel. So imagine there's a drill chuck here. Imagine that you have your ball here, you use the tool rest, and then you can sweep this arc with this tool. And this is a standard tool with a carbide insert. You can buy these on Amazon. And this is an indicator knuckle that you can also buy on Amazon. And this is a piece of bolt that I had in a drawer. But
With something like this, I'm kind of an advocate of running the lathe backwards and cutting from the back side in because you can see what the tool is doing. Whereas if you're cutting on the front, you really gotta angle your head around to see where the cut is happening.
So this is a facing tool. You wouldn't normally
Yeah,
put
the
this.
same way.
So this is,
Run the tool in reverse and start on the other side of the bowl. Come in.
you can do that if you want by flipping this over. I found it to work pretty effective just going the normal way.
You really have to turn it over.
You can do that if you want.
So you're doing the bottom of the bowl?
Yeah.
The inside and the bottom?
No, the very bottom of the bowl sits on the table. If you want to sweep a nice clean arc in there.
Oh, okay, so you get the arc.
Right. So this is what's generating the arc.
On the inside of the bowl.
I don't use it for the inside. But if you have a platter, I suppose you could. This is a relatively small radius. It actually makes a counter shock curve. So I just mostly use this for the bottom. But again, if you look at the TrueAct system that Robust sells, works the same way. It's just
A fraction of the price.
a fraction of the price, yeah. And that's all I had. And that was it. You can hand this around too.
So, as some of you might know, I have a tendency to turn eggs.
To lay eggs.
Like to make an egg, making an egg I find is very simple to do, except now you have to finish the end of this egg. And you can take it and you can cut it off on the lathe, and it's going to leave a little nub on the end of it, which you can sit there and you can sand it off. Or I made this little chuck. I turned my egg, I cut it off, I got a little stem on the bottom. Take a piece of wood out of the chuck, I put this into that same chuck, and I take my egg. My eggs are typically 1 3/4 by 2 1/2, 2 3/4. And this fits in there snugly. I'll bring my tailstock up to line up my center, because sometimes if I just stick it in there, it's gonna be a little bit off. But put it in here, push this in. It's got a nice friction fit in it, so you can either do sandpaper, or you can use a chisel or a gouge and clean that off and then sand it off without having to sit there. And if you hand sand, you gotta get flat spots in it. This one eliminate, in my opinion, some of that. That's all I have. That's it. Ron?
So, as many of you know, I make a lot of stuff. Okay, and I didn't bring any cutting tools or anything, mainly because I was a machinist, so I was able to make stuff. But basically, a depth gauge, mine's a little larger. Okay, but always used. This is a bed stop for your tailstock. Goes in, clamp it. So in sanding, here's a little Velcro board so I can put the papers I'm using, sequence. I use a lot of soft jaws or wood jaws, and here's one. So I'm a small volume production turner. So I make shot glass. I make a lot of stuff, and so I have chocks that are dedicated for that. This is for pendants and shot glasses, basically, and other things. But I can hold shot glass inside and out on here for sanding and sanding between coats of finish. Here's and now basically these are flat jaws. I made them, but you can buy flat jaws or actually use jumbo jaws or whatever and screw pieces of wood to it. I actually have 7 chucks with wood jaws on for, you know, here's one with step jaw. It's like a jam chuck. Okay, so adjustable jam chuck. If it doesn't fit real good, I can just do a quick cut at the diameter, hold it, and this is how I remove my tenons on all my round pieces, whether it's inside or outside that molded. But I leave the little turn to get a little nub of the center, then sand it out. So you make round pieces and you're going to mount it onto a faceplate. You know, I made wood, but this fits my faceplate. Go in, locates inside the hole, so it centers the faceplate to the plate. Okay, so here's a piece that's Morse taper. I actually have a little grooves on here for help cleaning, but I have a thread insert on the side, 1/4 inch hole in the middle, and I can mount 1/4 inch things like saber tooth burrs and sanding disc and so on and so forth. Mile lathe, and you know, I've tried to bring stuff that show it doesn't have to be made out of metal. Okay.
What's that for? The last one you showed?
This one?
Yeah.
Go on the lathe, then you can mount. This is a 1/4-20 thread insert with a set screw in there, and you can put your whatever 1/4 inch thing you want in there and use it on the lathe.
What's the long?
That's to lock it in. I don't use this on this lathe, but that's a threaded rod.
Oh, okay.
So just
Put a nut on that.
yeah. So here's something that I made. I turn a lot of spindle stuff. Honey dipper jars, rolling pins, a ton of stuff. And basically this is just could be made out of wood. This could be just any size rod, putting a drill in an electric drill, sharpening it up. This is just some airline hoses, a spring, and I epoxied a nut on here, and so it's spring loaded, but basically center this over a square, get it somewhat centered and bang it. You know, okay, so
I'm confused. What was that again?
this is marking centers for a spindle turn.
Ah,
Okay, just, you know, I'm doing production. I'm not wasting time. You know, This close tap it for what I'm doing, it works out awesome. Okay, so a lot of times I make lidded jars, I make spoon rests, I make a lot of, you know, little round things. Here's one for honey dipper jars for the lids. Okay, I just used some contact cement, glued some 60 grit paper on here. This goes in a chuck, and I'll have a square piece that's a little larger than that. Have the tailstock up against it, and I have my basic size. I'm roughing it too. And I have multiple, here's another one for spoon rest. Okay, and here's one that one thing that I have like for them is the live centers with 3/4 10 threads, robust, one way. My lathe came with one, and I thread a lot of things with 3/4 inch 10 to fit on the live center. And so this is just a cushion thing for sanding or whatever. This one mounts onto a robust friction drive that has a 3/4 10. So this would go in the headstock, and just a way to hold stuff without marking it. Here's a taper cleaner, here's a way to hold sandpaper, do some sanding on inside. There's a little slot, put the paper on it so it wraps around. Don't stick your finger inside there. Here's a sanding thing for my shot glasses. Stick a little Velcro on there. And I have a number of these, so I have, the 80, 120, so on and so forth, double-ended. Here's one for going into hollow forms and stuff. Velcro, Cleanspore sells bargain boxes of abrasives. So I picked up a bargain box of Velcro abrasive, and geez, I've had that now for about 9 years and it's still going. This is just a piece of rubber on something that'll go in a chuck for just holding something to face it. So I do coasters out of cookies, and to face off the coasters, just hold up against there, kind of center it, leave a little knob, and one other thing that I have multiple chucks. I have a lot of chucks, but two of the chucks I use a lot of the time is a 50 millimeter 2-inch, and then I think it's a 35 millimeters or whatever is just over an inch. And so instead of having to measure those things, I have pieces that this is just glued onto a traditional, these are both traditional live centers, but I made them out of metal, but it could be made out of wood to the size of my tenons. So when I'm doing honey dippers or whatever, or most times I don't just stick it in a chuck. Like Bill takes a square piece, sticks it in the chuck into the tray. I'm anal about putting a tenon on stuff. So with these live centers, I have my diameter already set. Don't have to measure. I just get it so I'm just over these sizes, and I know they're gonna fit my chuck really well. Okay, and then I wanted to bring one other thing so in turning, you can be a pretty good turner, but you have to be a really good sander. There's no getting around it. Your sanding is everything. Okay, you can have a nice piece, but it becomes a phenomenal piece when it's sanded correctly. And I'm always coming up with ideas of how to do it better, how to do it simpler. I have 2 right angle electric drills, corded drills, and then I started using cordless drill, the brushless cordless drill. The only problem with that is it seems when you let off the trigger, it stops abruptly, and all the times it would unscrew. Well, I have all Ryobi, and I saw a thing about cordless right angle die grinders. And Harbor Freight, had one that was, but then I thought, geez, maybe Ryobi has one. So I picked one up. I stuck some hot melt glue on here to limit the throw, but it's variable. I just wanted to show this because it's so light and it lasts a long time, and I just wanted to share. I don't even use the 2 corded drills anymore, basically. This is just a 1/4 inch, but I just thought I'd show that.
Thank you, Ron.
All right, so I do a lot of closed lip bowls, and I was always having a problem with my round nose scrapers of getting that nice curve. I don't do hollow forms. It's just, holes. So I just bought the blank, cut this, put a nice long handle on it so I've got the leverage of it so it doesn't flip on me. And yeah. So,
Nice. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jim.
Hi, Jim.
I've been turning for a very, very long time. And I started in a very frugal way. My dad always believed that you shouldn't buy anything. And so my first lathe was made out of a dump. And it was a pair of pillow block bearings on a piece of old cut off piece of I-beam. I still have it. I've rebuilt it 4 times. But when it came to, and as we all know, you buy the lathe, that's one cost, and then you buy everything else. And that's like 3 times the cost. So my dad was a big believer in scrapers. So this is one of the first scrapers we built. It cost exactly 2 set screws and a piece of high-speed steel. Everything else is coming out of the dump here. So the moral of the story here is you can make very efficient tools very, very inexpensively. And you don't have to buy great tools. Of course, I've lost that. Now I buy too many tools. But so this works really well for going deep and for taking a little bit of a cut. And very, very stable. It's actually a go-to tool for me still.
You using any kind of a capture system with that, or just
Nothing.
nothing?
Because when I made this, there were no capture systems. And so I started with Central New England Woodturners in 1987. J. Paul Fennell was one of the guys there. And he was doing what he called eggshell turnings, which were really, really very, very light, using light to gauge the thickness of the wood. So I wanted to emulate him, started with this, then went to this. This is a failure. This is 100% failure. Do not do this. So this was the first attempt at doing something that would get around the corner. So the hole is cut that way. So that piece of high-speed steel would get put in here, screwed in here. I used this exactly once, because what it does is it builds up so much torque that it'll rip your arm off. So never ever try to cut on the ends. Yeah, create that diagonal line like that and trying to cut out here, you create so much torque that's terrible. So don't ever do this. What I found was this weird one. There are 2 pieces of cutting steel here. One is the rubber, it rubs, and the cutter is here. So when you're inside of the bowl, you start like this, it's all smooth, you're not cutting any. You just slightly turn it, and when this gets into place, you start cutting, and you can take very fine pieces of shavings out,
and not twist off your arm. So that was a handy little thing. And the latest and greatest is this one, which is all pipe with a replacement carbide tip on the end, filled with shot to kill vibration. Again, really a cheap built tool that works pretty good. That's it. That's all I got. What's the what?
It's the wrap on that pipe.
This?
Yeah.
A piece of tube from the hardware store. It's just hose. It's just hose. This is black iron pipe. I painted red. This is a piece of normal, what is it, hot roll, cold rolled steel from the bin. And the most expensive thing is the cutting tip, which you can now then replace with a negative rake scraper bit or whatever you want to do. So.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
You can do it on cheap.
I'm not as clever as all of you guys, so a lot of this stuff is store-bought.
No way.
And occasionally there's an example of something that you ought to buy. And there's a whole lot of examples of dust collectors. But no particular order. There were some comments about thickness gauges. This is the conventional one. I liked your nice little wooden one. People were talking about scratching. Here's one that doesn't scratch. It's little brass balls, and fairly accurate, and you just read it over here. I find that pretty useful once I'm getting down close. Mostly I work by feel now, and this comes out only in thin pieces when we're getting near the bottom. You all ought to have some of this stuff here. Yeah, it comes in very handy for fixing things on the lathe or moisture proofing it quickly when you're taking a break. Or I use it for packaging wedge stands. That holds those pieces together pretty well. Sharpening. This is a Stuart Batty rest. He's now back in business. But for that I wouldn't bother to mention it because you couldn't get them, but you can now get them. And this is the simple thing to set it. I do all of my sharpening freehand. I've got a bunch of jigs and they gather dust. I strongly recommend freehand sharpening. You just learn to be pretty stable on it. If you've got a nice flat rest like this that you can position accurately, these get criticized because the part that touches the blade is just one of these narrow things. But on a CBN wheel particularly, which are nice and smooth edge, you can get it very close. And then I just use a little shim, so every time I put it up against the wheel, it's exactly the same distance. And that saves a lot of steel, because if you're off by just a fraction, now you're off by a half a degree or a degree, and you're wasting a lot of steel.
What's the problem with the point? You said.
Well, you can see you've only got about 3/8 of an inch. So somebody showed the wooden ones. Was it Dave? You had made those. Your 2 points are an inch and a half apart. There's commercial ones even farther, and that gets you a broader base. But because this is a very stable base, very easy to hold, you can set the angle very well. So I find the criticisms I hear about it probably are a little off the mark there. Haven't used it much. A little bigger might be slightly more accurate or repeatable, but good enough. Now, while these had been out of manufacture for a while until they reopened the plant, somebody came up with these. I saw them advertised a year or two ago. I bought one before one of our sharpening workshops, and this has got a whole array of numbered holes here. In these white areas you can write on with pencil, and so you can take any particular gouge, set this in a hole so that this angle is what you want, and you don't even really care what the angle actually is, you just want it to be repeatable. So maybe it's approximately 40 plus or minus. Once you pick that hole, this is a very versatile little thing. Now, the drawback to it is the vertical distance here is larger than you're used to with the Wolverine jigs and other things. And so you really need to mount the grinder an extra 1.5 to 2 inches higher. So when I first started to use it, it was so far off, I just decided against it. So I wasted money buying it, but it's a very good little jig. If one of you wants to make a contribution to the guild to raise some funds, I'm happy to part with it. And again, it's a nice surface. It's marked and works well. I have found it on the spindles, you're always doing 3/4. You've probably seen this before. You just take a spare 3/4 inch, sharpen one side, and use it as a tool, and you can get a reasonably decent cut. You just got to be sure you keep upward pressure on the bottom so that the cutter doesn't go too far down. You want to make sure that's positive pressure against the bottom of your turning piece, but you get it down close to 3/4. You can't start with the whole big thing, you won't dig in, but get it down close and zick, zick, you're done. And that takes care of the tenons. For the both pieces end up with a 3/4 inch hole in them. Both your top and your bottom have a 3/4 hole, and we've showed you how to make these in the past. You can see my accuracy wasn't good, so I had to throw a little tape on it, which is marginal at best, but you want to get this where it fits snugly and where you've got a little shoulder up against the wood, and that lets you finish the bottom of either piece pretty well. As another way to do it, it's nice to have one like this that's sized right, and you can twist it with an Allen wrench and get a nice tight fit. I couldn't find them individually, so I bought this whole silly kit. And the only one that's ever been used is the 3/4, but it certainly makes making the wig stands easier. Huh?
Use that?
Do you
Use it?
Oh yeah.
No. How do you use it?
How to use it? This goes into a 3/4 inch hole on the either the base or the head of the wig stand, which is where you're going to put the tenon from the spindle, and you tighten the back with a Allen wrench, and it takes all the play out of it. And for those relatively small diameters, you got a 5-inch and a 6-inch.
So then, Rick, how are you holding that once that's,
Oh, this goes into a chuck.
okay?
Yeah. So I've got a chuck that fits the headstock with a draw screw on it to keep it in there.
So would that be just for sanding or turning?
And for turning, yeah.
Turning and sanding.
Yeah, I typically get the whole thing done except for whichever side this is on, and then put it on to do the base. So the very top, finishing off the top of the thing, this would be useful. And you got strap wrench in your thing? I certainly find I get something on a chuck and I can't get the darn thing off or whatever. This is very handy to get things off with. Now here's a couple of gimmicks you may or may not have seen. I bought these, I don't know, at least 40 years ago, maybe closer to 50. Where's the rest of them? They're made by Delta, and I had not used them until yesterday for a very long time. Oh, here we go. They had come up with these where you've got this paddle bit for your drill press. It's the same diameter as this chuck, and these were being sold back before scroll chucks were generally available, long before I had one, certainly. And so this goes on the drill press, cuts a hole the same size as this, and then this has got a little wedge in it, like that, and that expands the. These are spring loaded. I don't know if I can pull them apart. So it's kind of a cute thing. I found in using it yesterday, trying to do one of those basswood blanks, I was having a hard time getting it to tighten. I ended up putting wax on the inside to reduce friction, and it probably needs a key or something here. But
I'm not sure I understand how would you use this? What is it?
Well, you need to cut a recess, just as you would for a scroll chuck, and you do that with this, which is sized exactly for that. It's right at 3 inches. And this expands just by hand tightening it. Now with a little refinement, it would probably still work. I haven't used it much because it's only got a 1-inch thing, but I do have an adapter that will get it onto my larger lathe. But I don't know, have anybody ever seen these? I've been online trying to find the instructions and any hint of them, and I think it was another gadget that Delta got out ahead of themselves and it never caught on, because they've lost a lot of money on some of their gimmicks. They and Porter Cable have had a couple of real fumbles. But interesting stuff. Now, in terms of holding, when I went to Stuart Batty's class back in March, he'd just taken this is the same, what was this, 3-inch faceplate that comes with the Powermatics, and he put these screws in there, just sharpen them on a wheel, and he was using those to bring up a rough blank. And it doesn't really matter. You don't have to worry about leveling it, centering it, messing it around. So you've got the point on one side of your blank, which is going to center it. You put that on the tailstock and just kind of lean it up to this, tighten it in there, and you rough that puppy out. It only takes a few seconds to get going. It grips well. You can do it even on bark. So I came home and made one, and I've enjoyed using it. And it's a great way when you're trying to do a bunch of green blanks. Makes mounting very simple. It replaces, in my shop, this gadget. Have you seen these?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got a set of 3 of these because one of our people was closing out their shop a couple of years ago. So I picked them up, and I've gotten a fair amount of use for irregular pieces that I'm trying to get some kind of a bite on it that goes in the headstock. And then you tighten these initially with a pair of pliers and then with a Allen screw. I found it's kind of a pain getting the Allen screw in there. You don't have much room to get a turn, and you want to go quite a ways in and get a good bite. So, handy thing up to a point. I like this better, but for something that was way out of whack, this might be coming back into play. A couple people mentioned the True Arc system. I saw that advertised, and I must have been, feeling like I needed a infusion of new gadgets, so I went ahead and bought one. They sell for around $400. In general, I would say the money might be better spent toward a good hollowing system or something. But it was an interesting thing, and the whole concept of a true arc is that you're creating an actual segment of an arc for your bowl. And it works by putting it in the tailstock. Come on out here. Let's go. Okay, so it's in here. It creates a pivot point, and now as you can see, it's pivoting on that spot and creating a circle. And it comes with a whole set of rods which screw together, and you can make various lengths so that you can be anywhere from, well, this is about the minimum, which isn't minimum enough. In fact, I've already lost something here. Oh, no, it's stuck on here. Jim Fisher gave me a little piece here to make a shorter hunk so we can get it down even lower. And that maybe will start to get to a minimum arc if you want a fairly deep face. But the virtue is that it's actually an arc segment, which in theory is hard to do by hand, in theory. So there's a simple true arc, just a small bowl, and you advance the thing very slowly. It's amazing. You get that single tool making the cut, you get a good clean cut, but you turn the tailstock just about as small an amount as you can each pass, make a new pass. It's coming forward, I don't know, 64th, 128, something like that. So you generally, you rough it out with the gouge first to save time. I have done it straight out of a flat piece of wood, but it's a whole lot of messing around. And somebody else said you do it on the bottom. I think I just did this by hand with the thought of using it on the bottom. It was Jim Fisher was doing that, right? get you an interesting base, but fun to play with. So I did that one. Make sure I get these right. This is done with a true arc. And doing the back is fairly easy because by eye and by hand you can make the back pretty well follow it as much as you want. Now I happened to go back upstairs with this after it was done. I found a piece that I had done, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, before true arc was ever invented. And I have a hard time telling which one is which. If I measured that, it might not be exactly the arc of a circle, but it's close enough. So, what did I really net? I don't know. Y'all know Hannes Mikkelsen?
Yeah.
Over at Manchester Center? He markets a jig of his own. If I were going to go back to jigs, I'd probably go to him instead of Wolverine. He uses this instead of the hole in the, that you make a hole an inch and 5/8, whatever it is. This you can vary it, and it holds the tool flat and set this. He uses this very simple jig, sits in here, and is adjusted to this. Click it on, and up it goes. And then instead of like you're used to on the Wolverine, his piece here has got multiple holes, so you can do the primary bevel, the secondary and tertiary bevels all right on here. And it works pretty slick. It's a nice little system. And it makes a very beautiful looking grind. Somebody looks at it and says, boy, this guy knows what he's doing. It's all nice and even.
If you look on YouTube, you have somebody, he's got a section on YouTube showing you how to use it.
Yeah, he sells them. He sells handles. And here's a gadget. I'm trying to remember the name of where I got it. There's somebody online that markets a carbide scraper that's got 2 little carbide scrapers on the end of a thing, and they make this tool rest that allows them to rest that scraper right on it and go inside and work your bowl and what have you. I just bought this because I wanted something that would reach into a narrow bowl opening and I could get a gouge in there and do stuff, so I just use it routinely. I suppose I got the longest one they make. It seems pretty stout. You get deep in there and you've got quite a bit of pressure on the end of that, but I think that's probably as stout as a wing on a 14-inch tool rest. And they also sell this. I wanted a live center with a chuck on it. And they market it. It comes with a set of 3 of these longer things. The other end of it's got a point. So it gives you various ways to contact your work and at the same time have a live center. The downside is it's kind of long and you get a little bit of play in there. But a lot of times I'm just looking for something to hold it on a jam chuck or do something. I'm trying not to make too much mark or indentation on the outside. So it's a handy tool. I like this handy thing especially with Nova chucks. Good way to get it off of there. It sure beats this piece of junk that Nova sells. Save you 20 bucks. It hurts your hand. It doesn't work well. It slips and it slides. They should be spanked for that one. Found these on Amazon. It's a whole set of Allen wrenches. This one's the right size to do a Nova chuck. The next size larger will do a Vic mark. But it's handy having all these different things, and the T can be offset. So for relatively short money, I think it was 20 or 22 bucks for a whole set of these in a little rack. They're good hard ends. Work well. I guess the final thing, I'm losing my thumbs. I got arthritis in both thumbs, and I'll be switched if I can turn a knurled knob or something. So I keep a couple of these around the shop. soft jaws. If there's anything I hate is taking a nice knob and messing it up with a pair of pliers. So there we go. Here's some. I never would have thought of this. This is one of these vibrating things. Bosch has a pretty good price on them. This and a battery-operated power planer. Pretty decent quality little tools. I use the planer sometimes, just quickly flatten a spot to get onto a faceplate. But with this thing, if I've got a little nub or something on the end, I could take a Ryobi saw or something and saw it off. But this gets right up close and it just opts like a little shaver. I get down to where I'll hardly even have any sanding to do when I take that final nub off the base of the bowl. So, and it's battery operated, it's right there and handy. All right, anybody else got any tips or wisdom or things? If not, I think that concludes what we've got to offer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.